And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Tidal Flooding Talk brought to you by the New Jersey Coastal Coalition in conjunction with our broadcast partners at Tri-X 57. We are in the doldrums of winter. We are here with Dan Skeldon. Dan, I'm going to tell you what, I was on the Ocean Drive Bridge, the one that goes from like Longport into Ocean City, not too long ago, and there was like barely a car on the road, and I said, yeah, it's just this is like the quiet time of year at the shore.
See,
Holidays are coming.
but as an Ocean City resident for 15 years, yes, absolutely quiet. I would use the adjective the best time of year because I'm not a crowds or traffic person. So, I love the blinking lights, the empty beaches. It's my favorite time of the year. I know I'm in the minority there, but I love the off season.
See here, okay, and that's fine. But here's my thing: like, I thought you probably liked your September, October more than you liked your January, February, March at the shore because it's still.
They each have their merits. Like I think snow on the beach is pretty cool,
I
and
agree with that.
yeah, love a good coastal storm. Without the
Uh,
tidal flooding, of
right,
course. But
without the
love
title.
watching the weather come in the winter time. But no, I think the entire off season has its merits, and even like you said, the doldrums of winter. I like the adjective. I think it's very fitting. But I like the gray, doldrums.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, our latest sunrises are now behind us, so that's
Yep.
good. Sunrises and sunsets are getting later.
Days are getting
We're
longer.
gonna go.
You'll probably start to notice it more in February, but you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. We're gonna go from one part of Jersey Shore to the other. We're gonna go from the southern part to the northern part. We have Amanda Oglesby, reporter with the Asbury Park Press here. She's gonna talk with us today about a story she did called "Is Wave Power New Jersey's Next Renewable Energy Source? See which hurdles remain." So we're gonna talk about that and a bunch of other topics. But Amanda, welcome to Tidal Flooding Talk. How's it going?
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Sure, you're welcome. And you said you're an Ocean County resident. Do you feel like it is like do you like January, February, March at the beach in Ocean County?
I don't like the beach, but I like that I can get into the restaurants without having to fight tourists. That's always a plus.
That is definitely a plus. That is definitely a plus. It's interesting too. We've talked about this. Like Monmouth County, for example, it's pretty year round. I mean, with some exceptions. I mean, Asbury Park and Long Branch are still pretty jumping. Red Bank, I think, is even more crowded in the winter. I feel like sometimes, but once you get down to Ocean City and Cape May, Cape May's are kind of year round. But Ocean City, Avalon, Sea Isle just kind of gets
And
all
Joe,
day.
I gotta be surprised you haven't asked Amanda like the burning question: Is Monmouth County Central and North Jersey?
Well, I was waiting to the end for that one,
Oh,
Dan.
okay,
But
gotcha.
sure,
Got
no. Let's do it now. Let's go ahead. Amanda's on the hot
You
seat.
know,
Go ahead.
I'm not allowed to weigh in on politically charged questions, so I can't answer that.
Oh, what a judicious answer. Very good of you. Your ethics and journalism there. All right. Well, I will hop in because politically, I think Central Jersey includes Monmouth County. There was that map like 3 years ago, I think the state put out. And Union County, I think, was also in Central, which is a hot one because I grew up in Union County, and I think most of Union County is in Central Jersey, but that's another story. All right, let's get back to the main topic here. So wave power. So not to bring up politics again, but there was a lot of political backlash against wind power that's offshore. We don't have to get into the politics of it yet, but wave power here. Just can you give us like a 30,000 foot view of where we are with this?
Well, we're not going to see any wave power turbines along the coast anytime soon. Right now, it's still in the development process. Both Rutgers University and the Stevens Institute are trying out different models for different kinds of wave energy, and they're trying to see what a lot of the problems are. And we know some of the problems with wave energy, which is why, unlike solar, wind, and other types of renewables that are already well adopted across the country, we haven't really seen anything with wave energy. There is one project getting underway off the port of Los Angeles, and this other company that's based in Israel is looking at a pier in Atlantic City for possibly doing a wave project there. But a lot of this technology is in its infancy, and even though hydropower is something that we've used in this country for decades and decades, there's a lot of problems when you get into the saltwater marine environment. You get You get little animals clinging to these machinery, these moving joints that you don't necessarily want there, barnacles, things like that. The costs are very high because this is a new technology. And as we know, salt water is really, really corrosive. So there are institutions all across the country, in addition to Rutgers and Stevens, particularly on the West Coast and out in Hawaii, that are looking at this new technology to see, is this something that we can do? Because there is a tremendous amount of energy inside the ocean. And right now, we're just getting beaten around by it when we go swimming at the beach. So people are looking at if there's a way to harness this. It's got a lot of benefits. It's more consistent than wind and solar. So if you could harness that level of powerful energy, you could power 60% of the country, according to the U.S. Energy Information Center. Now, that's not realistic because you're not going to put, these kinetic turbines in places that you want to go swimming or enjoy a nice view, but it's an untapped source of energy.
Amanda, is there any idea as to, since it's still in its infancy, how long it takes to determine if this is? Because right now it's not like a when will we see wave power. It sounds like it's still an if, but like how many years or even longer than that does it take for the research and for the development to study if this is practical?
Well, the U.S. Department of Energy has been putting seed grants into this since at least 2020. They've been putting several $1 millions a year into different companies, into different universities to do this research because they see the potential. It's got wonderful potential. And as the years go by and more research is being done, the costs are coming down, but there's still a lot of hurdles. So I don't think it's something realistically that we're going to see anywhere in a large scale in the next 10 years. But we might see that Atlantic City pilot project go in if they decide to move forward with that. But it's still very much in its infancy.
Yeah, and that pier you're saying is the steel pier on the northern part of Atlantic City there. Shout out to the Catanoso family who owns the steel pier. So that would actually be kind of cool. But I guess, and you kind of said this, but just trying to make it clear, like the waves, right? I mean, or these turbines, I mean, they can't be like in Atlantic City, like 10 feet in the water, right? I mean, they got to be far out. I don't know how much so I'm sorry for putting you on the spot ahead of time. But like, is this something where they're out like where these wind turbines were supposed to be, like 10, 15 miles out, and they're capturing the wave energy? Like, because when I think generally when people think waves, they're thinking of the crashing waves at the shore. But of course, there's swells. So is it more capturing the swells or is it capturing the waves? That's my question there.
It really depends on the model that you're talking about. There's at least 8 major different varieties of machinery that captures this wave energy. Some is sort of like a spillover type where it's hitting a seawall and that drainage is driving a turbine. Others are based on the actual movement and they're connected to the sea bottom. And as the wave pulls this floating buoy, it connects to that anchor on the bottom, and that movement between the bottom and the wave drives the turbine inside there. So there's all different models of how this can be done, and even the very early different types that they're trying everything right now. Some, you see right along these seawalls, some you see anchored out further places. They're working on these smaller scale individual buoys right now. But as far as nets of energy production that could power thousands of homes, I think we're still a little ways away. But there is a project in Israel that's going on right now where it's right along a seawall and you sort of have these joints that are moving up and down with the waves as they're coming into that seawall and driving the power there. So it really depends on the models that these different institutions or companies are trying.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're going to take our first break and we'll come back on the other side with Tidal Flooding Talk. Thanks to the New Jersey Coastal Coalition, your flood insurance bills are lower and your streets safer from the reality of flooding. Since beginning in 2013, we build more resilient shoreline communities. Our member towns develop and share in best practices that anticipate future concerns and create flooding solutions. From our town-specific free web app for flooding information to our weekly Tidal Flooding Talk show, we focus on flooding 24/7. Visit www.njcoastalcoalition.com for more.
Welcome back to the this week's Tidal Flooding Talk with meteorologist Joe Martucci. I'm Dan Skeldon, joined by Asbury Park Press's Amanda Oglesby. Amanda, thanks again for being with us. Great discussion on the potential of a new renewable energy power source, wave energy, and of course, Jersey Shore wave magnet. And I think you alluded to it too. It's a little more, I guess, reliable, or at least more of a steady state than, say, sun, because we all know Jersey can have, very cloudy periods, and wind, we can have very calm periods. But, there's always wave action, whether there's 2 footers or, 12 footers, the waves are nonstop along the shore.
And it's not just waves that they're looking to harness. They're looking at everything from tidal flows in and out to get some of that energy, and the different temperature gradients in the ocean. There's maybe a way for them to use that to get some energy out of that. So there's all different movements inside the ocean that they're looking at exploring as possible energy sources going forward.
And that temperature gradient thing's really cool because I mean, you guys know, right? I mean, you can go from, 40 something to 70 something along the Jersey Shore, sometimes from one day to the next. So I think as temperature gradients go, the Jersey Shore is perhaps ground zero for those best gradients if that's something they can harness.
And there's so many hard surfaces along our shore in terms of seawalls, in terms of piers and other built surfaces that we could potentially put these turbines along, places that they would be out of the way of swimmers or other kinds of recreation like fishing or something like that. And that would be kind of the ideal location to put these different energy projects if we do something like that. But, the scientists are still looking at whether all of the other costs that go into it are going to make that feasible and a realistic probability going forward.
Got it. And in your story, you talked about, well, I'll just ask the question, who generally in your reporting was for this and who had concerns about this?
Well, there were some Democrat lawmakers that are really on board with this. Obviously, our need for electricity is just going up year by year. Everyone knows that data centers are, even if we get more energy efficient appliances, data centers are going to be eating up a lot of the electricity in the grid going forward, and we're only going to get more of them coming online. So we need more energy sources. So everyone, Democrats and Republicans, understand that. There's some debate on whether renewables are the way to go or not. And because this kind of wave energy technology is still so early on, there's not necessarily great pushback, but there are some concerns from environmentalists and some Republicans about the scale of these things, because you would need a large scale to generate any real electricity. So would that have an impact on the Jersey Shore? We're not really at that question of scale yet, but that's something to look at down the road.
Yeah,
Sounds
I
like a
think
similar setup to the wind, the wind farms and that issue and how they shook out. Sorry,
Absolutely.
Dan, good.
I was at going in that exact direction, Joe. So, because the researchers don't necessarily study the economic, like, aesthetic impacts in a tourist area, which is of course one of the big, wind power negatives as far as coastal residents go. So I imagine, based on the scope and the real estate that would be necessary for these turbines, that would be an issue down the road if this were to come to fruition.
Yeah, and there's so many unknowns yet at this part of the process that it's really hard to even speculate on where that could go, depending on our energy needs, depending on which of these technologies end up really taking off and becoming cost effective. Excuse me. It's too early to tell, really.
Yep.
Got it. What else? I guess I'll say it this way. I mean, you were doing, your research and reporting on this. Was there anything in particular that was like, oh, I wasn't expecting this?
I had not really considered how corrosive the ocean is. I mean, we all know barnacles and different things like that have been problems for ships for years, but just the degradation that happens to any kind of machinery, metal, the corrosion that the ocean brings to these technologies, that is something we're going to have a really hard time overcoming if we're going to make this cost effective and doable in the long run. So there's all opportunities for new technologies, not just in capturing wave energy, but making things more resilient to an ocean environment that, maybe we'll get some benefits from in the long run.
And Amanda, are other ocean states? I know you said there's like a sample or like a case study near the Port of Los Angeles, and you said several New Jersey institutions are studying this. Is this a national interest where there are other colleges and universities beyond or research institutes beyond New Jersey kind of joining in the investigation into this?
Yeah, there's some in the New England area and but particularly the West Coast where you have those rocky shorelines. You're seeing Oregon, Washington, California, Alaska, and Hawaii. They all have centers specifically focused on looking at wave energy.
Hmm. Interesting. Um, as far as your work with the Asbury Park Press, your education and environmental reporter, um, is there besides wave energy, has there been anything on the docket that you've covered that's kind of different than what we would know in terms of developing energy?
Oh, I've just been keeping my eyes on the wind energy situation. Every month the federal government is going one way or the other with it. So it's kind of like watching a tennis match. But, how that plays out is going to have, a much more immediate effect on the Jersey Shore, whether it does play out or not, than I think wave energy is. So that's really the next big renewable in our area that either will or will not happen. So right now, everything seems to be pretty stalled, but in 3 or 4 years, when we have a new federal administration, that may change again. So it's worth keeping an eye on.
Sure. And as far as on the state level, right? I mean, we have a new governor coming in. Any word about DEP commissioner? Would it still be Sean La Tourette? Do we know if there's a change? Do we know how that shakes out yet? No.
I don't have an answer to that, but I know there's a lot more headwinds facing offshore wind, not to do a pun there, but
Oh yeah.
it's not just the political environment. The interest rates are really high right now. There's supply chain problems. There are very high cost of materials. Those are other things that have slowed down the industry outside of the political problems going on.
Sure. Sure. Go ahead, Dan. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, and it's I think yeah, wind has become like so controversial, right? I mean, we are in need of power now across the country, especially with the data centers from all the AI. I know the power supply is lacking. I think it's great that they're exploring these new options like wave power, but yeah, I never thought wind power would be as controversial as it is. But it's a lightning topic.
Yeah, and because it takes so long to build these kind of large scale facilities and the regulatory environment is so slow going, there's no way to really know right now if those things are ever going to get built or if they're going to be built in 10 years or if they're going to be completely abandoned. So it's going to be really interesting in the renewable energy market off the Jersey Shore and on land to see, what the federal government decides to prioritize in the coming years.
Sure. All right, we're going to take our last break here. We'll come back on the other side with Emmanuel Oglesby from the Asbury Park Press here on Tidal Flooding Talk. Meeting national flood insurance program requirements is the most cost-effective way to reduce the flood risk to new buildings and infrastructure. FEMA provides tools and resources to help communities navigate NFIP requirements and implement higher standards of floodplain management. To see more, you can go to FEMA.gov and search for floodplain management or go to the floods and map tabs on the top of the page. All right, and we are in our last segment with Amanda Oglesby from the Asbury Park Press. We were talking about wave power here. Looks like we pretty much covered everything here. I want to talk a little bit about you, Amanda. Tell us about your roots. I know you're I think a Jersey girl through and through. What got you interested in the environmental beat? And just tell us more about yourself.
Well, I grew up on the northern edge of the Pinelands, So, I spent a lot of time in the woods running around as a kid.
Okay.
And
Jackson,
no, actually Manchester, but you're pretty
Manchester.
close. Pretty
Okay,
close.
close. Close.
So, and I ended up going to Rutgers, and back when it was Cook College, which is now the School of Environmental and Biological Sciences, and so I was one of the weirdos that got a journalism degree from there, and I got a minor in environmental policy. So I've always been kind of interested in the environment, and I would turn the news on every time there was a forest fire down in the Warren Grove, Barnegat area, and it's just news and environment, I think, are two things that are really, really important. And I think at least now people are becoming more aware of how environmental problems like building too close to a forest, like climate change, are directly impacting their lives. And, I want to be part of helping people understand that.
What's been the most interesting environmental story you've done in your career?
Well, I worked through Sandy and covered the aftermath.
Yeah,
So, I mean, in terms of environmental stories, you don't top that.
yeah.
So, and there's so many things still left over from that event that have have ripples through our lives here at the shore, whether you're talking about flood insurance, building rules. It shapes the entire world we live in here on the coast and all our future planning. I mean, every time you go down Long Beach Island and it rains too hard, you're driving through a flood. So these are all hard questions we're going to have to ask as a state of how we're going to deal with these things going forward as sea level rises and as the land that we're on sinks.
Let me ask you. Last, April we had the Jones Road fire. No, a little bit south of you in Manchester, but I guess that kind of just fed into your point about how as we see a climate changing world and we're talking about the environment, that one hit super close to home. I mean, it was 15,000 acres, and I mean, it could have been worse. I mean, it could have got into those really populated areas, but I think, it's every time I drive down the parkway or up the parkway, whatever, and you're in like the 70s, right? The 70s or even the 60s, you see all the development. I mean, listen, we need houses. I want a house, but that's the kind of risk you have when you're there, especially during that fire. I mean, I've told this story on this show before, but the next day, the day after the big day, right? So it was still fire. I remember driving down the parkway and excuse me, and I saw the smoldering embers on the side of the road. I never saw that before. I mean, that literally looked like California wildfire stuff. Those crazy videos that you see online. It's like, oh, that's there. That's not here. That was here. Like the fire was right there. You're driving 65 miles an hour on the parkway. All right, let's be honest. I was probably going 74 or 75, but you get the point. So yeah, I mean, it's all things we need to think of, especially in Ocean County, right? I mean, this show is for everybody, but if you're based in New Jersey, Ocean County, I think the fastest growing county in New Jersey, right? Or definitely near up at the top, right?
I would say, yeah, Northern Ocean County area, definitely. I mean, they're saying Lakewood is going to be one of the biggest cities in the state, and it's probably already in the top three. I don't know off the top of my head, but yeah, I mean, we have a lot of development, and we're not going to go backwards, obviously. We're not going to tear down houses and plant trees, but, we might need to think about the kinds of houses we're building and the kinds of materials we're using, and not just places that are prone to forest fire, but along the coast where we're talking about flood zones, we're gonna have to make some serious decisions over the next 30 years as we redevelop and fix our homes and storms come. So we'll see what happens.
So in short, then you'll have no shortage of topics to write about in the future, right, going forward.
Keeps me busy always.
Awesome. Well, Amanda, thanks so much for coming on Tidal Flooding Talk. We're going to do the one thing we can't stop talking about tidal flooding or otherwise. But before we do, where can people find out more about your work and how they can follow you?
I'm online at app.com. So please visit our website and give it a read.
Yeah, and subscribe too. I'll say it for you. Subscribe to.
Thank
I am a
you.
subscriber to APP. I enjoy the push notifications. I read your stories. I also like the what's going there stuff. That's always super helpful as well. But I really appreciate it, man. So Let's get into it, Dan. One thing we can't stop talking about tidal flooding or otherwise. What's on the docket in the Skeldon household?
Well, we could do football because it is football playoffs. And we are talking
For
about
who?
what's that?
I said for who?
Oh, for both of us.
Ah, for me.
Well, you,
My
you, could- you
my
could
my
hop
Ravens are
on,
out of it. There's no playoff football for
you
me,
can
Dan.
hop on
We're
the
all
Patriots
Patriots.
bandwagon if you want.
What's that?
You can hop on the Patriots bandwagon if you want. As we record this, I'm opting. Do I want to drive up to New England for the game on Sunday night? It's going to be windy and cool. Got to drive right back, but or do I just sit by the comforts of my home and watch it on TV? So I'm kind of torn right now.
All right. Well, this so we're recording this on January 7th. So we will see how you make out, but we'll see how future Dan makes out. Do we think future Dan is gonna have fun like a week from now?
I hope so. I'll be holding up a big Tidal Flooding Talk sign in the stands
Oh,
if I'm there. So you're watching the game and you see the Tidal Flooding Talk sign, you'll know I chose to go to the game.
okay. All right. Good to know. I'll keep it in football too because my Baltimore Ravens made me cry again, Dan. I'm on the couch. First of all, I have to admit, I fell asleep for most of the fourth quarter, but I woke up with a minute left. I'm like, oh my God. I said, the Ravens are in position. They just need to kick the field goal and they win. And then Tyler Loop missed the field goals, 41 yards. I'm not happy that the Ravens did not run the ball. They kneeled it to get to the center. I don't know if we're boring you, Amanda, with this, but you know, but
I don't know.
then
I don't know how the fourth quarter made you fall asleep, or you slept through that fourth quarter, one of the most exciting quarters in any football game.
I caught up. I saw. I know. I think I was just a tired old man now, falling asleep on the couch. But and then John Harbaugh got fired. And I love John Harbaugh. He's my guy. I'm kind of on the fence about whether or not he should have been fired or not. I trust that the front office did the right thing. But he's been a coach for more than half my life.
Well, if he
So
has free
good.
time, we'll have to get him on as a future guest for Tidal Flooding Talk then.
That's true. I mean, Baltimore does have a lot of title
They
flooding.
do.
He
They do.
might know something about it. So, Amanda, take us off of football. Unless you want to talk, I mean, you can talk about football if you want. I don't care. But
I know absolutely nothing about football.
okay,
I'm
well, take us
sorry.
off football. That's fine. What's on your mind? Title flooding or otherwise?
I just want summer back. I miss it.
Okay,
That's all. That's
good
all
one.
I'm wishing for summer. I got my beach chair ready,
Okay.
ready to go. I don't care that it's January.
Are you one of those people? Like, are you out there when it's like 55 degrees, like in a
No,
hoodie? No. Oh, okay.
no,
Okay.
absolutely not. Nope.
Okay.
I won't go back until the end of June when it's nice and warm and not freezing cold, but I'll be
Okay.
there reading on the beach, hiding under my umbrella and SPF 60 or whatever they make, 100.
Yeah, they make 100 now.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for the day. I thought I heard this like 10 years ago that they were going to make a pill that you could take that would work for like as sunscreen. I think whoever invents that is going to make a load of money and a lot less people are going to get sunburned because I think people just don't. I mean, I am not the best sunscreen applier on planet Earth, so yeah, we'll see. Anyway, that's what we got for this episode of Tidal Flooding Talk. Good to be with you, Amanda. Thanks so much for coming on. We'll have plenty more episodes for you in the years ahead, or well, years ahead, yeah, and weeks ahead. Next week's episode, the 10-year anniversary of what some people would call Winter Storm Jonas. We're gonna have Jim Murdoch from News 12 come on and discuss that with us. Also, a former colleague of Dan. We will talk with everybody soon. Thanks for watching Tidal Flooding Talk.